recently outside the Capitol steps. In a moment that quickly drew national attention, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett made headlines again, this time by directly challenging FBI Director Kash Patel over the stunning and highly controversial arrest of Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan. As the cameras rolled and the tension mounted, Crockett didn't hesitate to confront the issue with her signature blend of boldness and sharp clarity. Her public rebuke of Patel was more than just political theater, it was a direct assault on what she and many others believed to be a growing misuse of federal authority. The topic at hand wasn't simply a legal matter. It was a deep, systemic question about the state of the American judiciary and the terrifying prospect that politics was creeping into a space meant to remain strictly impartial and independent. Crockett's words reverberated across media outlets and social platforms alike, not just because of their content, but because of the sincerity and urgency with which they were delivered. The story began in Wisconsin, a state that has long been a crucible for contentious legal and political battles. Judge Hannah Dugan, respected and known for her progressive rulings, found herself thrust into an unthinkable position, being arrested by federal agents under mysterious circumstances. Known for ruling in favor of marginalized communities and standing firmly on civil liberties, Dugan had developed a loyal following, even among those who didn't always agree with her judgments. She represented, for many, the kind of judge who still believed in the Constitution's promise, fair and impartial justice. But that belief was shaken when, with no public warrant or detailed statement, the FBI, under the leadership of Kash Patel, suddenly swept in and detained her. The optics alone were startling, a sitting judge being led away in handcuffs without explanation. The symbolic message couldn't be clearer, and it alarmed citizens and lawmakers across the political spectrum. Almost immediately, questions began to arise about the justification behind the arrest. There were whispers about procedural irregularities, a lack of transparency, and the possibility that the judge's prior rulings had put her in the crosshairs of powerful interests. As days passed without clear answers from the FBI or Director Patel, speculation turned into outrage. Media outlets clamored for comment, legal experts dissected the arrest on primetime panels, and the public grew increasingly anxious. Where was the rule of law? Where was the due process Judge Dugan had dedicated her career to upholding? And then came Jasmine Crockett, a voice of reason and resistance, stepping into the national spotlight and demanding what no one else in Congress seemed ready to ask: was this arrest politically motivated? Crockett didn't mince words. Standing before the press, she accused the FBI of veering dangerously into authoritarian territory. She described the arrest of Judge Dugan not as an isolated incident, but as a chilling example of how unchecked power could unravel the judicial fabric of America. She asked, quite plainly, how a nation claiming to defend freedom and democracy could tolerate a scenario where a judge is arrested in secret with no charges clearly stated. Her critique was not just of the act itself but of the broader trend it represented, a system that now seemed to operate on fear, silence, and intimidation. In one of her most searing remarks, Crockett declared, "If a sitting judge can be detained without explanation, then we've already crossed the line between democracy and dictatorship." Her remarks sent shockwaves through Washington. Critics attempted to dismiss her as overreacting, claiming the FBI must have had its reasons and citing ongoing investigations as justification for withholding information. But Crockett was relentless. She filed a formal request for Kash Patel to appear before Congress and testify under oath regarding the circumstances surrounding Dugan's arrest. She demanded access to internal communications, the legal justification for the detainment, and an explanation of the unprecedented secrecy. While some lawmakers hesitated, Crockett's fierce stand inspired others to voice their own concerns. Within days, what began as a single press confrontation had morphed into a full-scale inquiry that threatened to expose one of the most significant judicial crises in recent memory. Judge Hannah Dugan's history quickly became a central talking point. Her rulings in cases involving police accountability, immigrant rights, and environmental protection had earned her both praise and criticism. But what emerged during this scrutiny was a pattern. Many of her most contentious decisions had run afoul of federal or state agencies backed by powerful political figures. Could it be that she had stepped on the wrong toes? That her independence as a judge had made her a threat to those in power? These were no longer abstract questions, they were being shouted from every corner of the media, and Crockett ensured they reached the halls of Congress. She emphasized that Dugan had never been linked to any form of corruption, never faced a formal complaint through traditional judicial channels, and had been subject to no public disciplinary action. Her arrest, therefore, raised profound constitutional questions about the sanctity of the judiciary. Kash Patel, on the other hand, had long been a lightning rod for controversy. a figure often associated with hardline national security stances and a reputation for loyalty to specific political figures. Patel was no stranger to criticism. However, his new role as FBI director meant that every move he made was now subject to the highest scrutiny. His decision to authorize Judge Dugan's arrest, and more importantly, his refusal to explain it, placed him in direct conflict with the very principles of transparency and accountability his agency was supposed to uphold. And with Jasmine Crockett now leading the charge against him, the pressure only intensified. Patel issued a short, guarded statement claiming the arrest had been illegal and necessary, but offered no substantive evidence. That response only fueled the firestorm. Crockett continued to escalate her campaign. She made appearances on major news networks, participated in roundtable discussions, and hosted town halls where she listened directly to the fears of everyday Americans. In Milwaukee, she met with protesters holding signs reading "Hands off our judges" and "Stop the FBI power grab." The passion in these gatherings was unmistakable, and it reflected a broader concern that the institutions Americans had been taught to trust were no longer serving justice, they were being used as weapons. Crockett's speeches resonated because they weren't just about legal theory, they were about real, tangible fear. She framed the arrest of Dugan as a symbol of everything wrong with a justice system slipping into secrecy and control, and she became the champion of a cause that extended far beyond one judge. The national conversation quickly turned toward legislative solutions. Crockett introduced the Judicial Integrity and Protection Act, which would prohibit the arrest of a sitting judge without a full judicial review and public notification of charges. Critics claimed the bill would tie the hands of law enforcement, but supporters argued it was a necessary check against the abuse of federal power. The bill gained traction with civil rights groups, legal associations, and even some moderates who typically resisted such bold reforms. It was clear that something had changed. Crockett had sparked a movement, and that movement was demanding a re-examination of how justice was applied in America. Meanwhile, Judge Dugan remained silent, held in federal custody under conditions that many found shocking. According to sources close to her legal team, Dugan had been denied bail, was not allowed to speak with the press, and was being held without access to a full legal review. Her team filed motions in federal court demanding her immediate release and a statement of charges, but were met with bureaucratic delays and vague references to classified evidence. Crockett responded to this with fury, calling the process a farce and an insult to the very Constitution the FBI claims to defend. In Congress, she read aloud passages from the Bill of Rights and asked her colleagues whether they had forgotten the principles upon which the country was built. The standoff between Crockett and the FBI now represents more than just a clash of personalities. It's a defining moment in American politics and jurisprudence, a moment that could determine whether democratic norms are strengthened or eroded. For many Americans watching at home, Jasmine Crockett has become a symbol of resistance to tyranny. She speaks not just as a legislator, but as a guardian of the public's trust in the justice system. Her ability to articulate the stakes, backed by evidence and moral clarity, has made her one of the most compelling political figures in the country today. As the investigation unfolds and pressure mounts on the FBI to disclose the truth, Americans are left with sobering questions. How many other judges have been threatened or silenced behind closed doors? What role does political allegiance now play in determining who is protected and who is punished? And if Jasmine Crockett had not spoken out, would any of this have come to light? The answers may take time, but one thing is clear: the fight for judicial independence has found its most passionate advocate. The implications of this case stretch far beyond the courtroom. In classrooms, dinner tables, and community centers across the country, citizens are discussing what it means to live in a democracy where fear of retribution may silence even the most principled defenders of justice. Crockett has tapped into a national anxiety, one that has only grown louder with every unanswered question from Patel's office, and she is not slowing down. Her demand is simple: release Judge Dugan, explain the charges, and reform the system before it's too late. She knows this isn't just about law, it's about the soul of the nation. This moment, forged by courage and confrontation, is far from over. As Jasmine Crockett continues to pursue truth and transparency, she's reshaping the conversation around justice in America. She's turning a spotlight on the shadows of power and insisting they be held accountable. Her battle may have started with one judge, but it's ending with a movement that refuses to be ignored. If you believe in the power of justice, the need for truth, and the defense of democracy, then now is the time to speak up, stay informed, and stand with those who dare to challenge the powerful. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment in this critical fight for what's right. Your voice, just like Jasmine Crockett's, can make all the difference.